Holly?
They're all down there, look.
Oh, lovely.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to see you. We had a comedian in England, and he used to say, nice to see you nice. And I think that's a lovely way to start. So how is everybody? Is everybody fine? Good.
Very good. Happy Mother's Day to
Oh,
the mama.
thank you very much. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. Alison took us to, pardon? The Four Seasons Beverly Hills. And it was wonderful. We all had a wonderful time. It was quite amazing, quite different, and an experience that I won't forget. But no, I feel sorry for those people that go there regular, because they just won't get any joy out of it, will they? So we got a great buzz out of it, because it's not something we could afford to do every day, which I think is lovely. Okay. Do you think everybody's on now? Are we on, or is everybody in that's coming in, do you think, Alison?
Well, it's hard to say, but we have about 11 people on, and this is probably the majority of those that are going to be here today.
Okay, so shall we start then? Is that all right?
Yes, and just to remind Jean that the camera can see on each side, so I know that she's getting ready, but just to be careful.
She's just laughed because she heard that. So, yes, she won't be naughty, I promise. Okay. She just said it'll brighten up the morning, I must say, different. Okay, all right. Lovely. So, how many of you actually did your homework where you were writing out something about a member of your family? How many of you did that? Did you all do it? Mm-hmm. I wonder if you all did it.
I did.
Could you repeat the homework, Mavis? Because I didn't get that part.
Well, what I wanted you to do was I wanted you to choose one member of your family that you loved very much. And then I wanted you to write really their biography in bullets about the different parts and different phases of their life. Different things that would make you go, wow, oh yes, she's definitely here. Oh, I know that's definitely him communicating. So I wanted you to look at the varied and vast experience that a person has whilst they're living here. So that's what I was looking for, because it's a value for you to know the depths of information that can come through from the spirit world, because what we're getting is general information rather than we're getting the depth of their story. We're just getting one brief little glimpse of the aspect of their life instead of looking at the fullness of life. And you know, just have a look at it and think to yourself, well, how would I respond? Because much of what we say is generic, and it's only when we get beyond that that actually we start to feel that we have got the real person there. So I just was wondering how many of you have done it, and if you've misunderstood that or you haven't done it at all. Jean's just saying she wonders whether we're on the wrong group, and I've given it.
I think it was for Mentorship 3, that homework, and this is Mentorship 2.
I see. Okay, so perhaps you haven't had it.
New homework for them.
Yeah. We were given that homework some time ago.
Yeah,
Right.
we
2 months ago.
Oh, right.
also mentioned it our last class as well.
Oh, right. I thought that it had been mentioned. Okay, so
I never heard it, and neither did I do it. How many people did it?
I'm not sure. We have to do a count up on that one.
4.
Right. Four. So whether
So maybe it was given.
Pardon?
Yeah, so maybe it was given to this class.
Yeah. So if you didn't do it, I'd like you to do it, because it will give you an insight onto the kind of information you can come up with. that goes beyond this periphery of just the last 12 months or the last few years of their life, or dipping right into the past, because really what you should be able to do is give the whole of that, well, let's say identification on each chapter, each stage of their life, because they're not one personality, they're not one character. They have been many things for many people. For some, they've been a mother. For others, they've been a sister. For others, they've been a work colleague. For others, they've been quite stroppy and, you know, not very nice. There's been a mixture. But in that mixture, there are some very valuable gems that will prove life after death to the people that don't believe in it. So I wonder what you will come up with in that. I mean, I know when people are giving me a contact, and they're giving me a contact from Gordon, so I'll talk about that for a moment. But they're talking about Gordon, but he always comes in his suit, and he always comes with his white hair, and he always comes as an elegant speaker, and he always comes as a very nice man who was a leader. He always comes with a little bit of weight on, but going slightly bald. So he comes really at the periphery, whereas I know Gordon when he was in his gym jams talking to his parrots at home. I know him from being in the kitchen with him when he was cooking. I know him from being in the car with him when we were nipping out to have a whiskey on our journey somewhere. I remember Gordon in jeans and a sweatshirt. But does he ever come back as that normal man? No. Because once they feel they've got this man and he's symbolic of how Gordon was, they stay with that. They don't go on. They don't go on into the man himself. So I wonder if you've got a member of family who you get a lot of contacts from, but they don't go on. They don't get into the essence and the joy. I mean, when Gordon laughed, he could belly laugh. He could laugh till he was shaking. And when he was serious and when he was miserable, he was really down, and he could be really, really sad. So there's a mixture there of this human being that really is still the human being, but in another form. So I wonder if you were doing a member of your family, what you would say. I once had another group doing this exercise, and you would have never in a million years have picked up the density and the fragmentation of that life. You would have never have done it, because we're content, you and I, on the periphery. If we're getting a yes, we're content. We don't believe there's anything more. So that's really what you're investigating in your own family. Have you got a peculiar aunt? Have you got a grandmother that did something special, that went beyond any of the evidence you've ever had? So look at the evidence you've had from someone in the spirit world, and then look at their life and see how much and how deep the medium went into the evidence and into the conversation and into the lifestyle of that person, because it really will surprise you, and it'll also make you think about your own mediumship. How far are you going in, and how much are you allowing them to talk about? Because it's important that we do get you to that point where you're going beyond the periphery. You're going beyond the norm. The other thing you'll have a problem with there is the no. Because the no may still be the point that is hurting you. And we've got to get you beyond that, where you deliberately set yourself a challenge mediumistically to go out on a limb. To actually say, yes, I know I picked this up. No, it doesn't sound it. I don't understand it in my head, but I'm going to give it. And how you can accept at the beginning you're going to get a no, because the conscious mind will actually interfere with that. But you've got to really start now to think of the depths of information you can go to. And that's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. And you'll find it if you write the story. And it's only the bullet points. For instance, people talk about my mother. And my mother was a wonderful lady. But there was more to my mum than working in a cotton mill and living in a 2 up, 2 down in a brick terrace. There was much more to her. She was a dancer. She would belong to the Mothers' Union. There was so much there that really goes unspoken about. And the reason is that the mediums are content. They're not looking for any more. So the conversation that you have with the spirit world is very banal. It's very well, who are you and what are you and what did you love to do and, what was your home like? We don't get into the conversation that takes you into the very essence of their lives. And that's really what I'm looking for. So I want you to do that homework for me. Do you think you can manage that? Any questions before we move on? No, everybody happy there? Everybody happy and no questions to ask me? No? All right.
I have a question.
Good, lovely. Good morning, and how are you?
Hi there. It's evening here in Norway. It's almost 8 o'clock, but that's okay. I'm wondering, how do we get that depth? I know you said look for it, and we're on the peripheral, we're on the surface of our mediumship, but how do we get that depth without asking questions and getting in our head and interviewing?
Well, I think that once you open your mind up, your conscious mind up to the fact that you can go beyond the mundane and you can look for different things. You can, for instance, when you're just having your own thoughts, you can think to yourself, well, I wonder if there is anyone in the spirit world that would remind me of what my grandmother did when she was in the war. I wonder if there's anyone. So it's not necessary for you to do it on the platform. This is something that will seep into the consciousness and then seep into the subconsciousness. And then eventually will go into what I call the mind, the soul mind. And then it'll just happen automatic. So, that's what I want you to think of, that these things can be thought about and can be discussed around the table when you're driving your car. It can be discussed with yourself. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to be giving this out in a reading initially, because it won't happen. What will happen is only when you've got into the very essence of your soul, the very essence of that super consciousness. When you've got that actually ticking over on that level, then it will become automatic in the conversation without you needing to worry about it. Okay, so I'm not saying that tomorrow you can get up on a platform or do a one-to-one instantly and go into the depths. What I want you to do is to think about it, to use your minds in a constructive and positive way. Because whatever takes place in the conscious mind, it will eventually pass through the other consciousnesses until it hits that memory, that soul memory, and it should happen automatically. What I know from my 50 years is that sometimes, even the contacts you get are similar. Sometimes I'll be on the platform and I'll think, oh my God, I'm sure I gave this about 2 months ago. I'm sure that came up. Now, there are many reasons why that happens. It can be that you've become highly recommended by the spirit world. So that's why that it is similar. But also, I'm comfortable with it because I know it. And once you're comfortable with something, you go with it far stronger, far clearer, and you're happier. What I'm saying is you've got to get this into your mind quickly, but thoroughly. So therefore, this is homework that you would do when you're on your own, not necessarily doing it on a platform. All right, my darling. okay? And it's not about you asking questions. It's actually about you preparing. This is your preparation. This is your homework again. This is everything we do without needing Mr. Public. These are things we can do in our ordinary everyday lives. This is what I did when I was ironing or doing my washing, where you're in that space where you can think philosophical and mediumistic thoughts without interruption. So that's where I would go with it. But
Thank you.
Try it. Do try it. Do try it. It is amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much for the question. Sensible question. Lovely. Anyone else got a question for me about this? Because it's no good coming back and then emailing us later on. It's far better to get it done while we're all together. No? Okay. Lovely. I haven't got any questions here, so I'm going to get on now. So you know what you're up against, don't you? And what I like to hear you talk about. So when you've done this and you've got the memory and you've done all the bullets, look at the evidence that's come out of it. Look at it and think to yourself, now that's the kind of thing I would like to pick up. I would like to pick up pieces like that. Information, and then let that seep into the subconscious, let that seep into the soul, and it will come, and it will come as you're working. All right. I wonder if anybody already has found that sometimes they seem to get similar contacts when they're on platform or doing one-to-ones, as if you get suicides, and then you get a lot of cancer, and then you get a lot of this. Anybody notice that? That's usually because you become highly recommended and people in the spirit world know they can trust you. So that's a lovely thought, isn't it, Anne? Okay, it's lovely to think that if you are getting what I call repeats from the spirit world, not repeats from here, but repeats from the spirit world, that quite often it is that you've become highly recommended. Somebody, in other words, has talked about you in the spirit world. Isn't that a nice thought that they're talking about you and they're going to have a try at using you next time? I think that's the wonderful part of it. So we have to have done our homework, and that's part of our homework. All right? But today my talk really wasn't about that. My talk today is about trance and altered states. That's what I'm going to go into. Because I think it's important. It's abused, really, the word trance, and sometimes you call it channeling. So we've got channeling, and we've got trance, and we've got altered states. So let's begin at the beginning. And what's the myth about trance? People will say, oh, I was in deep trance, so I don't remember. It is there within the subconscious. You do know. All that has happened is you've got into such a peaceful state, a wonderful passive state, that instead of the conscious mind picking up the full conversation, but when you need to recall it, you can recall it, because it is still mental mediumship. Trance is mental, always there. You are never. And the myth is, oh yes, I don't know anything about it. Okay, so that's a myth, really, that you need to be careful of. Okay, it's knowing and understanding yourself again. You know, with mediumship and its development, there's a lot of self-work to do, a lot of self-work to do, that you have to know yourself so much that you are in control and you're confident in each stage that you're in. There are a lot of myths about the trance state, but let's talk about you understanding yourself in your mediumship. So, you know, understanding the process for yourself and others, you've got to be able to talk about what's going to happen. So if you're sitting with other people, that you've got to be able to explain to the people something of what is going to take place, so that they know what to expect as you're sitting with them. You certainly don't need to be in the dark you can be in a shadowed light because that makes it easier on the optic nerve of the eye, I know. But you don't want to be in the dark. There's no need for the dark when you're sitting for the trance state. So understanding that and understanding how you sit, for me, if you are going to develop the trance state, then it has to be a discipline. It has to be regular. And if possible, you need a tiny group of people around you who are going to sit for you. Now, say you have 2 people that have the potential for trance in one small group. You would sit for one of them, then you would come out, have a drink, go to the loo and come back and sit for the second. You wouldn't try and sit them together because the power and the energy that will be used for one is not the same as for the other. So you're better to break it and then come back in and go for the second one. Don't just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It won't work, okay? You will weaken the power. You won't get into the state that it's possible for you to get into. So, you know, just honor that fact that, yes, I'm sitting now. We will have a break, and then at 10 minutes, that's all it needs. But have a break, have a drink, and then come back in and sit for the second. I don't believe that everyone should sit that's in a circle. I believe that the medium should have their choice. They should have their time. Because you've got to acknowledge the responsibility of the process. And the process is very, very fragile and very, very delicate. And it brings the medium's mind and the medium's being. That's where the fragileness comes from. And that, you know, you're not quite in the physical and you're not quite with the spirit world. You're like on the balance. So, you know, acknowledging the responsibility of taking care of the medium that is sitting and not worrying about yourself and what it's going to be like when you sit, but actually being concerned and being very alert for the medium that's sitting, for me is the most important thing. You have to take care of the medium. And the other thing that's essential is honesty. Now, we do know, and I'm smiling here, so I hope you all can see me smiling, mediums are spiritually dishonest. And I mean that funny. I don't mean that in any harsh way. But you want everybody to have done well. You want everybody to have achieved something. So quite sometimes, you know, you can make things fit a little bit. You can actually maneuver things around a little bit. And, you know, you can't do that with the trance. You've got to be honest and you've got to keep it real. That's the other thing you're looking for, keeping it real. So be an honest sitter. And if you don't see anything and you don't see the auric field moving, don't feel pressured into having to say, because you love the medium that's sitting, oh yes, that was wonderful. Don't do it. Just keep yourself honest, all right? I'm not saying destroy the medium, because it will be your opinion, of course. If you don't see anything, it doesn't mean to say that the medium next to you doesn't see something. So it's only your opinion, but keep honest with your opinions. All right. Okay. So if we can move to the next slide now, we're looking at how trance has been used over the centuries. And it's every culture, every religion, there has been this ability to slip into that altered state very deep to let the spirit world work. The Chinese do it, Aboriginals, Hindus, Greeks, Egyptians, Sufis, Native Americans and shamans. All of them have got their own procedures and their own disciplines of how to get into that trance state. So it might be interesting for you to have a look at that and see how they did it. And is it the right way for you to go, or are you going to go a more up-to-date way? But when you look at them, I mean, every one of those, when there has been a chief or a leader or a teacher, you will find that there has always been that opportunity for the altered state of consciousness, so that the teacher or the leader doesn't have to actually take total responsibility practically. They can get help from the spirit world, but it is only help. That's all they get. All right. So look at it from that point of view. So what would you do, perhaps, to bring into being, if we could have the next slide, Alison, what would you do? How would you do it? Would you fast? Well, no, you wouldn't fast. But let me say, if you are going to sit in trance state, then possibly don't have a big meal. Just keep it as light as you can. So a light luncheon, but not a heavy dinner, not at all. Sleep deprivation, we believe that works. It wouldn't suit me. It's not something that I would do, but for some people, that's what they do. They actually try and stay awake and stay awake and stay awake. And I think that's quite dangerous, and it's not something I would advise anyone to do. Dehydration, again, withdrawing yourself from the natural element of water, for me, would be an unspiritual thing to do. It wouldn't be a spiritual thing to do. So for me, taking your water, taking your fluid in, it will not work against the altered state or the trance state. It will work for it, actually, because it helps you to actually keep the rhythm of your body. For some people, they work in extreme temperatures. And here again, it wouldn't suit me, because I'm a cold fish. So if I get cold, my conscious mind tells me how cold I am, and I can't think of anything else. So that's the other danger that you've got to watch, that you're not actually creating a problem for yourself, where your conscious mind isn't going to let you relax to get into the passive state that you'll need to be in. So you need to look at that. I love music when I'm going into the altered states. I'm not saying chanting, but I would say the singing. And I love it when you see the people in the chapels, when the choirs are singing and the people are singing. You can see them going into that spiritual altered state, and it's just a lovely feel. And you can sense and you can see the auric field opening out as they're singing and as they're chanting. And it's beautiful to actually listen to. I remember Jean and I once were going, I can't remember where we were, but we were somewhere in the world. And we were walking up this road, and we could hear these monks. Malta we were. And these monks were actually chanting and singing. And we were outside on a very, very busy street. And yet, you know, you could feel that state coming into being, of that altered state, the presence of the spirit being there. And we weren't even in the room with them. We were outside, but you literally could feel it. It was so beautiful to listen to those sounds. And Gordon used to believe that with music and with colour, that we all have our individual note, and he believed we have our own individual colour that will help to bring into being that relaxed state before the trance starts. Now, he never taught me enough about it for me to be able to teach it, but I do remember him talking about it. And I do know that when we had Swami at the college, Swami would do what's called the singing bowls. I don't know if any of you have heard of those, the singing bowls. But it was amazing how you could have one sound from the singing bowl, and you think, oh God, I can feel that resonating through me, and it's beautiful. And then another one would be so jarring that you wanted to run out of the room. So if you are going to use singing, or you're going to use chanting, or you're going to use music, then find something that is conducive to the group that you're sitting with, not just for yourself. Because it's no good you sitting there in trance and somebody having to listen to your music, but it jars on them, because they won't relax, so you won't get the power coming to you from them. So you need this affinity where everybody is in harmony with the note, with the sound, and with the simplicity of what you're doing. So chanting and singing, I love the music. I love the music. And some of our music that's being created is just absolutely beautiful and is conducive. And it is definitely conducive for us going into an altered state of consciousness. So, you know, but look at it carefully. Make sure you're getting the right space. Meditation, well, as you know, I'm not much good at meditation. But for some people, the discipline is like the meditation. For me, I know that if I'm going to work as a medium on a platform or do a one-to-one, I have to come up this way. I know that if I'm going to do altered states or trance, I need to go down. So I need to become passive. So there are totally different stages that I need to be in that is conducive to the altered state leading to trance. So for me, closing it down, so I would open the crown. And as I'm bringing the power down through the crown, I would be thinking of relinquishing my clairvoyance to them, relinquishing everything. Because I don't want my clairvoyance if I'm going to be in an altered state or I'm leading to trance. I don't want the clairvoyance working, and I don't want the clairaudience working, because I don't need them. I'm not going to be doing the biggest bulk of the work. So I know that I can quieten everything down here. So as I come down, I give the blessing, but I don't lift the veil and I don't invoke the power to hear. What I do is I just leave those in a lovely passive state. But as I'm coming down to my heart, I'll think about my heart needs to beat in unison with the spirit world, quietly and slowly. And I need to be beating out the love that pulls the spirit world into me. And that's what I do, going down to the solar plexus, try and create a space there of absolute belief and calm, so that the spirit world then know that they don't have to give me anything to prove that they're there. I've just surrendered to them and just surrendering the whole to them. So that's how I would do it. But if you are good at meditation and it works for you, then continue to do it your way, because the passive state is totally different from what I would be wanting you to use when you're, of course, on a platform. So meditation, yes, I think it's got 100% value. Disciplines 100% value for the spirit world to invoke the altered states leading to trance, okay? The fixing of candles and fires. I think the ceremonies are beautiful. When you hear people talking about the ceremonies that they will invoke, and it is a ceremony when they light the candles or they light the fires, the intention, the sacredness, the building that sacred awareness that they're doing something that is of the God source. I just love it. I love the ideas of it. And I do believe that it will help. It will help a great deal in influencing the medium's mind to quieten enough so that the soul can actually merge at oneness with the spirit world, and therefore they can relinquish a lot of the responsibility. Not all the responsibility, but a great deal of it. And you do have to relinquish a lot. But do remember, you're still a mental medium. It's still called mental mediumship. All right. Okay. So what responsibilities does a teacher have? For me, they should have studied. They should have understood the different levels of consciousness that people can go to. They also should know if the medium is stable enough to do a trance state. If there is anything where the person is unstable, either through a nervous breakdown or any of those kind of things, the teacher should know. She should know about it before she allows them to sit. And then she should be able to read them to make sure that they are in a good place mentally, that they can proceed in this way, and then therefore they can produce that wonderful, wonderful miracle that is called trance work. A teacher must have the knowledge and the process. So how many levels does how many levels does the medium have to go to before they reach the trance state? How many levels are there? And how do they drop down each level? And what takes place at every drop? Okay? And is it a drop, or is it totally just another blending? So you need to know, as the teacher, every time you're watching the medium, you should be able to see the aura, you should be able to see the chakras, you should be able to see the spirit world coming in, and then you should be able to see where the student is, or where the medium is, in the spiritual aspect, not necessarily with your physical sight. We'll come to that later on, okay? Knowledge of the process and the impact it can have on the medium. Because sometimes I've seen mediums and they come out of trance like that. You can't come out like that, because there is a process of your body functions slowing down to such a degree, so your heart rate has slowed down, your metabolism slowed down, your lungs have changed, your heart's changed its rhythm, so you can't just suddenly wake up and appear you're back. You can't do it if you're in a deep trance state. You can if you're in a light altered state, but you can't if you're in a trance state. It will take at least 7 to 10 minutes for you to actually, for the spirit world to actually withdraw slowly, and your physical body take over its responsibility for your heart and your breath and your metabolism. So, you know, there's a vast change there. So if you're seeing somebody come out like that, they're not in the trance state. They're in an altered state, perhaps, but not the deep trance state. Okay? And you need to be able to read each level. So how many levels do you think there are before one touches the trance state? Because it's really important that you understand the levels, and you can see the sitter, you can see the medium actually, the process taking place where they come in, they level there, then there's a deepening again, and then there's stop, there's a level there, because it's a slow process for the spirit world to take over every aspect of that person, and that's what they do. Does the spirit come out of the body? No, it doesn't. You can't put an oak into an elm. You can only graft an oak onto an elm. And that's what's happening with the trance. They're grafting onto you. They are not coming in and taking over. They can't do that. That's how, if you wanted to put it simply, that's how you would put it. It's like the blending is the grafting on. But it isn't you coming out of the body and standing there and the spirit body coming in. It doesn't work like that. So be absolutely certain of where you're up to. And if you are watching people sitting in the trance state, then, you know, just be careful. Try and open your sensitivity so that you can see where they are, because that will help you when you're sitting, because you learn. You are your own teacher again. And we all teach each other, but we all teach ourselves as well, which is a wonderful thought. Now, I believed when I came into to mediumship, I thought when I dropped into the trance state, which is what happened to me, I believed that the spirit, my spirit, came out and was over there, and another spirit came in. And I believed that for quite a long time, and it was only through actually watching people talking to Gordon and Mr. Brooks that I actually learned that my spirit doesn't come out of my body. It'll only do that with astral projection, and that means that it can visit the spirit world, but has to come back very quickly. All right. So, you know, understanding where the person is in the trance state, And don't be afraid of telling them, I'm sorry, I don't believe you were in the trance. I believe you were in an entranced state, or you was in an altered state. But let's have a look at where we're going with the next slide. Alison, is there another slide to give me? Yeah, okay. The integrity for all the states, for the people that are sitting, you must honestly have a lot of integrity and a lot of honesty to be able to tell the person, yes, I do believe you were in a state of altered state. I do believe you were in trance. Honesty to know the difference between you clairvoyantly seeing and you physically seeing. There is a vast difference. So in your group, if you're going to set up a group to study the trance state, then always have somebody that can't see and can't feel. So it'd be a good one to have somebody like Jean, who's very interested, very knowledgeable, knows everything but can't see. Because then if Jean says, no, I didn't see that, then you know you're looking with your clairvoyant vision. And that's not really what you want when you're sitting watching someone. So keeping an awareness that I've lifted the veil and I'm looking at the medium, I'm now seeing the spirit world through my clairvoyant vision rather than I'm seeing through my physical eye. And it is important that you know the difference, because I know of a medium, a very, very good medium, good demonstrator, good teacher, but she sat with a group of people who told her that they could physically see the spirit world building up. And then when other people went to watch her, nobody saw anything. And it absolutely devastated her to such a degree that she never went back and did it again. Okay, so your honesty, are you seeing clairvoyantly? Yes, I am. I see that Indian with you, but I know I'm looking through my clairvoyant vision. Always try and be honest. If you are seeing with your physical sight, then if there are 5 people in that room, the 5 should see exactly what you're seeing. So in other words, if you've got 5 people sitting and one of you sees an Indian and the other of you sees a nun and someone else sees a priest, then you know that the 3 of you have been using your clairvoyance. That's what you've used to see. It's when all of you say it was an Indian and yes, he did have his headdress on. Yes, I did see his feathers. And it's only then that you know you can say to the medium, well, you are achieving the trance state now. So you have to be careful. You have to know what you're doing. Okay. So your commitment to it is extraordinary. If you are going to sit, then it should be at least once a fortnight, if not once a week. Okay. If possible, it should be weekly. And it should, if possible, be in the same room, okay? But I know in this day and age that we're living in, we're so fast movers that it's very difficult for somebody to set up a special place where you can just go and sit to develop the trance state. And of course, not every medium is born to be a trance medium. For some of you, you will do trance privately, but it will never move to public. For others of you, it could be that you will take it publicly in the end. It will depend on the discipline, it'll depend on the gene, it'll depend on the soul and what it's come to do. Okay, so, you know, be careful. But if you're going to do it, then remember it has to have equal commitment that you've got to put into your platform mediumship and your private sitting if you want to do it. Okay. So let's have a look at that now. So if we're looking at that and we're saying, what's the purpose for the spirit world? Well, the evidence that they can bring forward is not contaminated by your conscious thought. So in other words, if you are a deep trance medium, you're able to say, I've got your mother here. Her name was Florence. She was 31 when she died, and she lived at number 37 Ash Street. And her work was an accountant. And she worked with a man called James Thorpe, who's here now. So the evidence that comes through is absolutely striking. And it's so factual that and there's no breaks, because the medium's mind isn't involved in it at all. So the spirit world have been able to cut the mind out completely, the conscious mind out. So they're free to bring the evidence as they would like to do. So for other words, a woman who's talking about her daughter could go say, I want to go into your second drawer down on the left-hand side, and I'll find a book in there, and it's the diary of my life. And if you turn to page 37, you'll find that there's this written about you. It's so correct. There is no I don't knows, and there is no I'm not sure, and there's definitely no no's. I can't take that. So if we're talking about that, we are actually talking about the perfect miracle, because it becomes the perfect miracle because it's not contaminated by us at all. So that's the evidence of survival. And I suppose for every mum in the spirit world, that's what they would like to achieve, the opportunity to bring that perfect evidence back. And they'll never do it perfectly, because we are human beings, and therefore it has to be passed through our mind. But once the mind has become so quiet, then we don't have to interrupt the flow from the spirit world, which is good. The second thing is the philosophy and the wisdom. That's the other thing you find. But you know, the wisdom and the philosophy that the spirit world bring through in the trance state, it's sometimes about their world. They will teach you about their world in which they live and move and grow and have their being. They'll talk to you about the different schoolhouses of learning, the different places you can travel to in astral projection. So there's a lot of teaching goes on from the trance state about the afterlife, and we need that, because that helps us as mediums to be clearer in our understanding of who we're working with over there. So I like that idea. The wisdom is the wisdom of understanding you can't change everyone. If you just change yourself, you've done well. And that's really it, you know. We try to change people's philosophy. We try to tell them what to do. We try to prove that we are right in everything we say. And sometimes the spirit world will tell you quite categorically, your opinion is essential, but your dictatorship is not needed. And there is a vast difference between the two. And that's what you're looking for, really. You're looking for that wisdom that's beyond you've got to love your neighbour, and the birds and the bees and the sycamore trees. And, you know, there's so much more wisdom that the spirit world have got, rather than this, what I call sugary sweet wisdom. I think the sugary sweet wisdom comes from the altered state rather than the purity of the trance. With the pure trance, sometimes you have to listen to things you don't want to hear, okay? Because they'll tell the truth as it is, okay? Also, and I love this part of the trance, the healing, where you allow that divine force, that divine, you become, if you like, you become the channel of the Great Spirit as the healing's taking place. And here again, what a wonderful, wonderful gift to have, to be able to give away. That ability to get yourself into such a state that the spirit world can say, look, darling, I think this is arthritis. I know that this is this. I would like you to go and see a doctor. And that's the beauty of the spirit world, you know. They will tell you to use the the healing from the earth, the healing from the spirit world, and the healing from the medical profession. They will never exclude any one of them. They will bring them all together to do the best that can be done for the patient. So, you know, it's a wonderful, I don't know if you've seen a really good transhealer work, but it's like they place the patient seems to go in this bubble with them, as if there's only the two of them and this divine power flowing through them. And it's as if they're in a oneness alone, just the two with the God source. And it's like you don't want to breathe just in case you break that breath of God that's coming forward and flowing from one to the other. It's just the most amazing, amazing experience to be watching and to watch the colour and how the colour moves and fluctuates with the pain and the discomfort as it's leaving the body. Ah, goodness gracious me. If you have got the ability for transhealing, then, oh, you are going to be such a wonderful asset for the people on earth, okay? For others, they just want to touch the earth again. They just want to feel what it's like to be in a physical frame. They just want to actually be able to tell you that they used to knit or they used to be able to knock nails in. They like taking over the movement of the body. And I know with Gordon, when Chu Chow came through, Chu Chow loved to shuffle. He never walked anywhere. He shuffled everywhere. And you could tell when he'd got Gordon in absolute deep trance, because Gordon had quite large feet and Chu Chow only had small feet. And you could see the kind of a shuffling that was going on. But, you know, I saw Gordon with Chu Chow. When Chu Chow had control, I saw him walking down steps without holding on to a banister, without holding on to anyone, just coming down 4 or 5 steps, walking up and down the aisle, talking to the individual member that was sat there, and then walking back up the steps, back to the chair, and sitting down without a break, without a pause, without an error being made, and all the time his eyes were totally closed. So a deep trance medium actually will be able to move about because they allow the spirit to move them. They don't move themselves. So there's no fear because they're not there. They really have surrendered totally. And that, again, is another amazing thing about the trance. And, you know, very rare now are we seeing the trance mediums. We had a wonderful trance medium, she would take one flower out of a vase of, say, 20 flowers. She would take one flower and pull it out, and none of the other flowers would fall out of the vase. She'd just get the one, and she'd just take it to the one person in the audience, still in the trance state, still with her eyes closed, and pass it and say, your mother is sending you this because this is the flowers that you had on her coffin. And I remember them saying, yes, that's correct, we did. That's trance mediumship at its very, very deepest and its very best. That's when the control is almost perfect. And if you are sitting with anybody, that's what they should be aiming for. That ability to be in a strange place without any knowledge of the place beforehand, but they should be able to let go, surrender to the spirit, and the spirit should be able to move them throughout that room and those people without any harm coming to anyone or any stumbling. So I think that that would be rather remarkable. Did that happen to me? No, I never got to that point with me. But then again, I wasn't born to do that work, not to that extent. Yes, the altered states, yes, but not to do it. I'm not a jack of all trades. You know, master one and master one well. All right. So could we have the next slide here? Okay, thank you. So how do we start? I think we've already talked about this really. You know, your conscious mind getting it under control. You want a passive state. You don't want to be thinking thoughts of, am I becoming still? What should I be doing? You should really have a routine that you go through where you can allow your mind to just become passive, where you don't need the spirit world to tell you that they're around, where you don't need advice and help from the people on the earth, where you just go into that peaceful, passive state, where you can feel your nerves actually moving away, and you becoming aware of your heart slowing down, aware that you are changing. And this is the main point. You will change. It changes you. Everything about you. You might decide as you're sitting there in the power, you'll recognize, no, my heart is slower now. It's slowed down. When you take the pulse of a person in the trance state, you will always find it's just very, very light. Never stops, but it's very, very light. And that's the wonderful thing about it. The whole body, mind, soul gets involved with the trance state, and to a degree of such passive surrender that nothing can disturb the medium once they're in. Everything you do is moving you towards that relaxation, that breath that is so natural as it slows down. And you don't even to think about opening up to let the spirit world in. You don't even think about that. You're not working on platform. You're not going to have to come up with anything, any goods at all. You're not looking for a yes or a no. You're just sitting for the presence of the spirit. So I think that that's the wonderful thing about the altered states of consciousness, that you are sitting for the pure joy of sitting with the discarnate spirit, for no other reason at the beginning. That is the best way to approach trance if you're going to try it, is to go for no other purpose, no other reason, other than I am just wanting to surrender to this other world and letting go. No preconceived ideas, so no thinking to yourself, oh, Mavis Tutorial says I should be doing this. No, none of that. Okay, just sitting in the gentleness, the warmth, the love of your God source, reaching out to touch the spirit world and embrace them. That's all you're doing. Okay, and you don't need the evidence. You don't need any evidence. You are the evidence. As you go deeper and deeper and deeper into it, you'll find you have become the evidence. You understand what I'm saying? So looking for that. In the end, you can go in. You can go in very, very fast. You can go in very, very quick. At other times you can't. At other times it will take more time. But for some of our mediums, they go in very fast. Okay. And for others, they take a long time to get there. Don't rush it. There's no rush. There's no end to the journey. There's no total depth of trance. There is only just finding these altered states. All right. So that's how that does. Okay. Thank you, Alison. Okay. So how many altered states are there? So the first one is just letting go of awareness. Just letting go of your surroundings here. So you can't feel the chair. You're not aware of the people in the room. You won't even hear the sneeze or the cough, really. It'll be there in the periphery, but it won't be taking precedence in your mind. You just are letting go of the awareness of the earth. And that gives you the clearing of your mind. It clears your mind to just think peaceful thoughts. Now, by that time, for me, what I'm usually doing, because as you know, my conscious mind is very naughty, and it has to be controlled, or otherwise it goes off on a tangent. I would be saying a hymn, I would be into a prayer. I would be trying to think of spiritual matters. That's what I would try and keep my conscious mind, not on my awareness of letting go, but on my awareness that this is a spiritual time and therefore it's spiritual thoughts that I'm looking for as I'm going in, and that's what I do. And from that then I allow the discarnate spirit to first impact on my mind. So that's what will happen first, and that there is the altered state of consciousness. That's the state you're in when you're working on a platform, really. It's just a different type of power. But you do have to have that when you're on platform, the discarnate spirit impacting on the mind, so that the mind becomes, it relinquishes its hold and lets the soul mind in to do the work, okay? But from there, in that peaceful state, the good evidence of life after death can come, okay? But it can come in so many different ways, because by that time, in that altered state, you will already have relinquished some of your body thoughts. So in other words, you won't need to think, is this a heart or a chest? You'll know, because what will come is you will feel the heart attack, you will feel the lung disease, you won't even have to question it, you'll just know, because they've come so close during that period of time that you've surrendered in such a way. And then when you're speaking about the evidence, you won't know you're giving evidence. You will just be allowing the spirit world to talk naturally to the family they've come to talk to. So that's the other part of it, is you don't need the yes or the no, because it's not going to make any difference to you, because you're not actually involved in the same way as you are on platform. So although, yes, they may want to talk to you about the sitter may, it won't make an impression on you, because you won't be there. You will have surrendered so much that the spirit world is doing it all. And that's lovely to be in that position. It's really lovely to be in that position. So the evidence after life, after death, I honestly think it should come during the altered state. And I would suggest that that then has become entrancement. So we've got an altered state, a light altered state. Now we're talking at this stage, we're talking about entrancement, where the spirit world can come in. You see people on the platform with this entranced state, because then the presence and the love of the spirit is free to be able to flow through the medium. But when you see it in a closed situation, when somebody is attempting to go into the trance state, it's absolutely beautiful to see. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. But that is entrancement. And of course, that from there, the moldings quite often can start. And what do I mean by moldings? Because it is still mental mediumship, everything that takes place to producing their likeness on your face has to be done from inside. So what they do is they move the edema round the body, and then it'll come up, and then it'll come into the cheekbones, and then it'll come into the forehead. So actually, they actually mold their own faces, but it comes from underneath the skin. It doesn't come from outside. That's a totally different. If you've got the face outside, it's called transfiguration. That's transfiguration. But that's inside, and it is inside the person, then where you're talking then, you're talking about moldings. Now, I know from people who have sat with me in the past, when Mika-san, that's my main control in the spirit world, comes through, they always say they know him, first of all, by here and by here, okay? So you're looking at points of the face that you can't change, and you can't change cheekbones, and you can't change the depth of a forehead, and you can't change the length of a chin. But you know, if we took a photograph of all of us when we're in deep, deep sleep, we wouldn't look anything like we look at the moment, because we would be totally relaxed, okay? So you've got to be careful that you're not seeing a relaxed person, and that's why the face has changed. You've really got to be looking to see the mouldings come in. And it's still entrancement, that's not trance. You could almost say that there we are talking about channeling, because quite often the voice changes there, but we've not really hit the deep, deep trance. That really is that part where the medium has given access for the spirit world to use them as far as it is possible for the spirit world to use them. So that's where the mouldings come from. Transfiguration is totally different. If somebody is transfiguring, it means that the image, that the face is there, okay? The face is outside the medium's face. So say that's the face there. The medium could move her head like this, backwards and forwards, and the face would still stay static. That's transfiguration, okay? So you can see the difference of that. The mouldings, I think, are wonderful, but you also quite often, by that time, you'll find that the voice has changed. The voice box will have changed. And there will be more emphasis on the sound or the note of the voice. For Mika-san, he sounds, when you're working with them, one of my ladies in the spirit world, she's very, very strong and very powerful, and she's very articulate. And then when you talk to Mika-san, he's quite a gentle, strong person, but the way he speaks is different. And you need to watch the terminology and the way they speak, because it's nothing like how the medium speaks when they're either on a platform or they're doing a private sitting, because it's the spirit world's intonation. It's the spirit world's use of words. It's not theirs. So you can watch that too. And all these things lead to give you, if you like, an understanding that, yes, I am a trance medium. I am a medium that can do entrancement. And I am a medium that goes into an altered state. I can slip into it quite easily. But you know where you are. And that's the beauty of it. Okay. Is that the last slide, I think, isn't it, Alison? Okay. I think that's the last slide, I think. Is that right? Or is it just now the deep trance, light transfers? I think I've really covered this, because the delivery of philosophy and theosophy, it's out of this world. It's unbelievable what they can talk to you about. And it's not something that you will find in a book. Usually it's something far beyond. Something. I remember Mika-san giving me a piece of work that I searched to try and find anyone who'd written anything to do with the worlds within worlds. Couldn't find a book anywhere. Couldn't find any understanding. But he gave it to me, and he wanted me to produce it and then talk about it. So I did in the end. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we hear the philosophy from the altered state, but is it true philosophy, or is it philosophy you could find in a book? Or is it the philosophy of the true spirit world? Because really the spirit world want to talk about the spirit world. Not, they can't change your attitude, they can't change your life, you have to do that. And there are hundreds and hundreds of books, you know, about self-help, self-healing, self-philosophy, self-government, all those that they've been written so often. But for the spirit world, they try to bring something in that perhaps we haven't thought of before. So perhaps that's something you could think about. What is the true depth of the philosophy and the theosophy that the spirit world can bring us? The personality, it just gets stronger, but you always know there is a hint of the medium there in light trance, and that could be your channeling. I'm sorry, something's come up on the screen. Okay. You know, that's light channeling, you could say. The overshadowing is light trance, light channeling. It doesn't have a link to the very depth and the very essence that really you want to get to. But you could use this on platform, this light trance, because you'll watch one or two mediums that work and you know that they're so far removed from the audience that they're with the spirit, and they actually give you the knowledge that they're bathed in the spirit world. And that conscious mind of theirs is very, very, it's there and it can interfere, but it's as if it's on the periphery. And it's getting to that point that I want you to think about. But that really means that the medium is getting to the point of surrender, but they have not totally surrendered, because they can interfere at any moment. They can come in and they can start to interfere with it and break it, really, and break it. I know I've broken it many times when I've been there. I actually partially hear them say something that you don't agree with, and that can bring you almost back in. You've got to be careful of that, because they're not always going to agree with you. For instance, with me, I'm not a great believer in reincarnation, and many people are, and Mika-san talks about reincarnation. So when I'm in a light trance, well, I'm thinking, oh, that's not what I believe with. And it can disturb the trance, because I'm still there on the periphery, and it's still possible for me to just budge in. So we have to be careful, and we have to get rid of, as far as possible, our own terminology and our own words when we're allowing the spirit world to have that light trance state, that light altered state, so that they've got more freedom of choice of what they do, what they say, and where they're moving to. Thank you, Alison. Okay, so if we look at the deep trance now, and I've actually covered this, so as you can see, I've gone backwards and forwards, which is typical me. I haven't perhaps stuck to the regular way of doing this, so I do apologize for that, but I hope you've enjoyed it anyway. But deep meditation, 20 to 25 minutes it'll take you to get into that state. You can't get in that state in 5 minutes. It's a form of self-hypnosis. You have to be aware that the conscious mind has to help you to do this. So in the old days, they would use hypnotists. They would have a lot of mesmers with them. And if you look at any of the old writing on mediumship, they talk about the mesmers that would be with them, and that was the hypnotist. Now, you can do that self-hypnosis yourself, and sometimes it's having an affirmation that you go over and over and over and over that affirmation. But it is a form of letting go. And as you let go of your own senses. So you can't feel your fingers, you can't feel your arm, you can't feel the movement that's taking place there, because you've handed it over to the spirit. And in the end, I honestly believe when you watch a deep, deep trance medium, the higher self is the one that really is on the periphery. The conscious mind is so far back, it's so remote, that it doesn't interfere. This is where you get the strong impulse to speak, where you can't help it. Sometimes, I don't know how many of you have had this, but my lips, when I started to do this many, many years ago, my mouth felt very, very big, as if I couldn't get my words out. My whole face in the light trance I could feel. When it went deeper, I lost that, and I would come round and I would have spoken. And the thing about it was that people would tell me what I'd said. I wouldn't remember it, but there would have been words that would kind of somehow link, but I didn't know how. I couldn't link together to make a sentence or a conversation. And you know, that's the degree you get to. The other thing about the deep trance state that I have found, when I did it, I would go somewhere, say, a month later, and be doing the philosophy, and it would be the philosophy that had come through in that deep trance state. So that's why we know it's mental mediumship, because it's stored within the subconscious. It's stored within the supermind, the superconscious. So it can come up and you can deliver it at a later date. So for some people, they write it all down. But mark my words, if it's necessary, it will come back. And it won't come back where you can say, last Wednesday, I did this trance of breath and this is the same. There will just be sentences that trigger you in to know that this is something you've done before. But I used to come off platform and my partner used to say to me, oh, you did, you know, when you were in trance, you did that many, many months ago. That came up in the trance state. So we know that that re-entry can come up at any time. And that's why we say, although some mediums don't like it said, it is still nevertheless, even in the deep trance state, it is still your responsibility. You are the responsible one. You are in control. There is no way that the spirit world can break the law that says you have no responsibility for the altered state, the entranced state, the light trance state, or the deep trance state. You are responsible all the way through for every bit. And that seems rather harsh to me, because sometimes I think, but I don't know and I don't remember. So how can I be responsible? But unfortunately, as far as the Earth government is concerned, yes, you are. Well, thank you for listening to me about the altered states. And now I need you to ask me some questions, because I think we've got a little bit more time to spare, haven't we, Alison?
Yes, we have 15 minutes. And to answer Nita's question, there wasn't any slide about the other trans levels. Those were all the slides.
Sorry.
Okay, thanks. I just thought she was done talking about it when she said, are there any more slides? And we hadn't seen the last.
Okay, yeah, and I couldn't see the chat while the share screen was on, so I didn't know when that came in.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I'm sorry about that, but I am trying very hard. But Jean is usually sat with me, but of course you can't sit with me today because I'm at this little desk.
There's some questions.
Okay. Yes.
Does anyone have questions? Is that oh.
Yes.
If you can turn off your mic, if you don't have a question, and put your question in the chat so that your mic is off. Oh, Liz has a question.
Wonderful.
Hi, Mavis. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. My question is, how do you really know if you have the ability for trance?
Well, I think every medium has the potential for entrancement. I feel that every medium should try to sit to develop that deeper awareness of how close the spirit world can come. Once you have a good circle to sit with, you will get to know where you are in the state of this. But you do need to sit to get to know for yourself. You may never hit the deep trance state, but all mediums will hit the altered state. And I believe all mediums touch entrancement. Because when we watch our mediums on platform, without them being aware of it, they take over the mannerisms. Now, the mannerisms come from the entranced state. So we know that to a degree, most mediums can get to that degree. So they can get an altered state and an entranced state. Usually the light trance state is the next phase. So for the light trance state, they need to be in a circle situation where their intention is to sit to see how far they can go. Do you see what I'm saying? All right. Or the other thing is, if you trust a medium, really trust a teacher, and they say to you, you have the potential to go into the deep trance, then perhaps you could research that Okay. All right. But for me, it's always best that you prove it to yourself for yourself. That's the best way. So that's what I would suggest you do. So if you can get into an entranced state, you should be able to get into a light trance state. From there, then, if you have good sitters and you have an opportunity to sit regularly, then who knows the next level you could get to. But I would go for it and try it, okay? But I do believe that every medium has that opportunity to do entrancement, okay?
Yeah, I've been able to get into the entranced state, and I've had some movement, and so I'm just wondering about getting into a deeper state. So I guess I'll just
you do need. I prefer you to be in a closed circle for that, and you need somebody who can see clairvoyantly, but you need somebody who can see physically. So you've got to have somebody who knows and can use the mediumistic side, but you also need somebody who is not mediumistic, so that if they're saying, oh my goodness gracious me, I saw an Indian build up, then everybody should have seen it, okay? So you really, the yardstick is, once you get it and if you want to take it into deep trance, get into a good close circle, make sure you've got logical, sensible people sitting with you, and you don't get anybody who's going to say how magnificent everything is, and because you don't know then. And I have seen mediums, well, they have been told that they were good, and yet it's broke their heart when they've tried to do it in front of researchers or scientists or the public, because the public haven't seen what the sitters say they saw. You see what I'm saying? So, you just have to be a little bit careful. So if you can sit with people that know what they're doing and are not going to lead you astray kind of thing, that's the best way to go. So if you have a teacher, then talk to the teacher about it, okay? But choose wisely the people who are going to sit with you, because they have to give you the power, they have to give you the understanding, but they've got to give you that honesty. All right, sweetheart.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks, Mavis.
Anyone else have questions? Nita?
Do you think that it's possible to form a closed circle for those purposes using Zoom rather than being in person?
Brit, I don't know. I would have never have thought doing this would have been possible. So I don't know. Okay. I mean, we could presume that if you can do this, you can do that. But I'm being absolutely honest. I'm doing things that 5 years ago I would have said definitely not. It can't be done. So I'm being very cautious now that I say I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay, that's the best thing to say, because we don't know how far this equipment is going to take us, really.
Technically, there should be no reason, because you can see ours.
Jeannie's just saying, well, technically there shouldn't be a problem, but it's the feel. It's the feel. When you're in a close circle and the medium's getting into that surrender state and the spirit world are blending with you, the absolute feel and sense of the spirit coming in and touching every member in the circle. I don't know that you could get that, you see. But I'm not saying no. I'm saying I don't know. So it may be that some people would like to experiment with it and try it. There is nothing to stop us trying everything, because the spirit world will back us if they can. We know that the spirit world will not let us down. So, perhaps some people would like to experiment with it, and it would be a good idea. All right. But
Okay.
I don't know.
I have another question. You were talking about having somebody in the group who can see clairvoyantly, see the spirit, see the colors change. How does one develop the ability to see in that way?
That's your psychic. So you only need to be a very good psychic for that. That's why we do psychic exercises in the circles sometimes. And I know people get fed up of this of the psychic because they want to do the mediumship. But without the psychic, then you can't get the same connection with the spirit world. Without the psychic, you can't get the same connection with the people here. Because the word is soul. So it's a soul link on every level. So you need a person who can psychically, clairvoyantly, and with their sensitivity, be aware of the spirit coming in, but see the spirit come in. And then have the ability to be able to register that, okay? But then you do need somebody who has no ability, because if you're going to say, I see a red Indian, it's the one with no ability that's going to say, no, I don't. And then you'll know you're using your clairvoyant vision to see.
So that leads to another question. Sorry, everybody. Just one more. When you say see an Indian, are you talking about the molding?
Yeah, it can be the moldings, it can be the size, you can see the arms expanding, you can sometimes see the headdress. It will depend how deep the medium has gone and how much surrendering has taken place to how much can happen, okay?
But that's not ectoplasm.
No, it is all part of the trance state.
Okay.
If you're talking about ectoplasm, you've gone on to a totally different form of mediumship altogether. You know, it has no links with the trance, okay?
Okay,
Yes,
thank
I've
you.
talked about the moulding.
Boy, do I have a lot to learn.
Well, I think we're all still learning. And like I say, I'm having to learn again with all this technology, because I would never have thought that this could work that we're doing now. So, you know, you don't ever stop learning, and goodness gracious me, isn't it an exciting world and an exciting life that nothing but nothing has to be solid, where it's unmovable, everything is movable, everything is changeable, everything's an adventure really. So you utilize life as an adventure.
And Mavis,
Yes.
what I suggest is that you're going to have a Q&A at some point that we'll be posting, and so those that didn't get a chance to ask questions, I'll put up a Q&A in the mentorship, and you can just list your questions there, and we'll try to get to those first in the next Q&A. Does that sound good, Mavis?
Oh, that sounds fabulous. Fabulous.
Okay,
Fabulous.
perfect.
All right, darlings.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my opinion. Remember, you have to do your own research. Lots of love. Jean's here to say bye-bye. Oh, that's getting